God's story, your life. Unfolding short stories.
Have you ever been in a season where it felt like God lost your address? Have you ever been in such a season where God intervened in a way that reminded you that He delights in every detail of your life? That's what happened to me. It was a time when I was a young mom with 3 sons. I had high-risk pregnancies with second and third sons, months on bed rest. Our middle son, when he was about 18 months old, had respiratory troubles and ended up in the hospital. And there was a point where we wonder if we'd get to take him home. His chest caved in with every breath. It looked like his ribs would break with every breath, and he wheezed all the way down to his toes. Nothing they could do was helping him. There was a point when one of the doctors said, "I don't know if his heart is going to last another 24 hours. It was devastating. But then they called a specialist onto the scene. He gave him special medicine, and things turned around. Shortly after that, I found out I was pregnant with baby number 3. 6 months of bed rest with a high-risk pregnancy. Called in all my friend favors. And I really, that time of being on bed rest with a 1 and a 3-year-old, seeing my friends get tired because of me, confronted all of my insecurities. And I was still very new in the faith. And God seemed silent. I'd open the Bible and the Word felt dead on the page. I see the fatigue in my friends' eyes, and I could tell they were losing that love and feeling. I wondered if everybody was going to change their mind about me. During that 6 months time on bed rest, my doctors let me get up and test the waters. So I was about 6 months along, 3 months left to go of this pregnancy. And I met my old college roommates on a fall day in the Midwest. We went for a walk, had a wonderful time. I was super careful. We had lunch, but that proved to be too much. I started to contract again and had to go back to bed. On my left side, drank lots of water, calling in all my friend favors, 3 more months to go. 2 weeks from that outing, while on bed rest, my face started to go numb. I got a numbing, crawling feeling at the base of my skull, and it pulsed around in my whole face, pins and needles in my face and my arms. My memory, just having memory issues. I was a young woman at the time. Terrifying. Neurological symptoms were just cascading through my body, and I still had 3 months left to go in this pregnancy. Surely God would not allow me to go through another overlapping crisis. I couldn't even imagine it, delivering the son and then looking at a potential lifetime of a debilitating neurological disease. Where was God? Where are you? I cried out to him. I begged him to speak to me. But the heavens seemed silent. We delivered our little Jordan. And the doctor said, "Your son Luke, just 10 months ago, almost lost his life from a respiratory illness. And it's wintertime, and RSV, it's a respiratory virus, is epidemic. So they said, don't let anybody come to your house who's got a cold or kids with a cold. We need to protect Luke's lungs, he's still healing, and protect your little baby." So we put the word out, please don't come and visit if you've got a cold. But lo and behold, a woman came to visit. She walked in the door with her little toddler who had a green runny nose. She coughed and sneezed, and I'm telling you, within a day or two, Luke was wheezing. He was struggling. And they said, well, we would admit him, but you've got a newborn baby. This is an airborne virus. We're going to teach you how to treat him at home. We had a little split entry, a little playpen. So down in the lower level, we put Luke down there with a playpen and a blanket over the playpen and a steamer blowing into it. We kind of made our own hospital tent. They taught me how to pound on his rib cage on the side to loosen up his lungs. I would treat him, love him, rock him, pray over him. He was so sick. Disinfect my hands, change my shirt, run up to the little nursery and nurse my baby. Disinfect my hands, change my shirt, sit in the rocker to wait to see which baby needed me. Every 2 hours. I never slept more than 2 hours, all day, all night, day after day, week after week. All the while, my body is fighting an illness. And if you want to give a disease a landing strip in your body, deprive yourself of sleep. I was beside myself. I was so exhausted, keeping these children apart. But I was just determined to keep them apart, keep them healthy. After about 3.5 weeks, my efforts failed. I went in to check on our little baby. and he had a rattly cough. And I couldn't believe it. So we called our life group together from church, and they all came and got in our living room and surrounded his little car carrier. We had him in a little bassinet car carrier. One of them brought their guitar. They sang worship songs. They prayed over him. And honestly, I hadn't felt God's presence like that in a really long time. And I truly still didn't know if I had done something to chase him away. But just being near the sense of his presence was so beautiful. Hearing that music, hearing these prayers, I felt we were on the cusp of a miracle. The next morning, I go in to check on little Jordan, and his lips are blue because he's coughing so hard. I had to bring him to the ER. They grabbed a hold of him and rushed. They didn't wait for the paperwork. They said, "Follow us," and they whipped him down the hall. They admitted him right away, 2 doors down from where Luke was. I remember walking by the room where Luke had been 10 months prior, and they got him all hooked up to an IV and put him in a tent. And I sat down. I was exhausted. My face was numb. I have a second child in the hospital in less than a year. And Kev said, "I'm going to go call family and ask them to pray." And as I sat next to this little baby, my 4-week-old baby, in this tent, in this hospital, I was suddenly overcome with joy and peace, flooded, my whole being flooded with peace and joy. And I wrote in my journal, "I don't know what this is, God, but I'll take it." I thought either I'm losing my mind or God is doing something amazing. Jordan had double pneumonia and a few other issues. He was in the hospital for about a week, and we got him home. Once he got better, my health plummeted. And over the course of the next year, they ruled out a brain tumor. They ruled out MS. And there was one point where they didn't know what was wrong with me. But a year later, we found out I had Lyme disease. And that's a story in of itself. But there was a point where I'd hit rock bottom. My husband carried me out to the car, drove me to the hospital. I was like a limp rag doll. They put a shunt in my arm. And they sent us home and said a home health care nurse will be coming to your house to fill your refrigerator with IV bags and teach you how to do IV at home. I'm on the couch. She's hooking up a big IV bag to our mini blinds. And Jordan's a year old at this time. And like a little Speedy Gonzales, he runs into the living room, runs out, and he runs back in. And she goes, "Wait, what?" She goes, "What's he doing alive?" I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Well, based on when your symptoms manifested, you were bit at about 6 months along." She said, "I've taken care of 2 other patients who were bit by a deer tick unknowingly around the same time, manifested symptoms within a couple weeks of that kind of similar situation. Both of those babies went blind and died. Why is your son still alive?" I said, "I don't know." And she said, "Was he sick at all?" I said, "Yes, he was in the hospital at 4 weeks old." She said, "He was? Was he on IV?" And I said, "He was." And she said, "What did they use for medicine?" I told her. She said, "That treated his Lyme before you even knew you had it." I buckled. I wept. I cried. I said, "God, I will never shake my fist at you again." I begged God for a miracle. I felt like he had turned his back on me and he had said no to the most sincere request that you just save my baby. But he said no in the moment because I didn't want to go to the hospital so he could say yes to Jordan's life. Jordan is now a husband, a father, an amazing son. He loves Jesus. God saved his life. In Psalm 46, it says this: "God is our refuge and strength, always ready to help in times of trouble. So we will not fear when earthquakes come and the mountains crumble into the sea. Let the oceans roar and foam. Let the mountains tremble as the waters surge. A river brings joy to the city of our God, the sacred home of the Most High. God dwells in that city. It cannot be destroyed. From the very break of day, God will protect it. The nations are in chaos. Their kingdoms crumble. God's voice thunders, and the earth melts. The Lord of heaven's armies is here among us. God of Israel is our fortress. Come see the glorious works of the Lord. See how he brings destruction upon the world. He causes wars to end throughout the earth. He breaks the bow and snaps the spear. He burns the shield with fire." And here's what I want you to hear. "Be still and know that I am God. I will be honored by every nation. I'll be honored throughout the world. The Lord of heaven's armies is here among us. The God of Israel is our fortress. Whether you feel him or not, the Lord of heaven's armies is among you. Don't confuse what feels like his silence with his absence. In Psalm 46:10, be still. Another translation is cease striving and know that he is God. Be still, cease striving. It means three things: to let go, sink down, relax, and in some cases be quiet. In the very places where you feel like striving, where you feel restless, where you feel like accusing God of things that the devil is guilty of, in those places, God wants you to encounter him. He wants you to let go, sink down into his love, rest in his care, and be quiet if the words you're saying are bearing witness against God and not for him. Cease striving, and then it says, know that he is God. Know in that passage means to experientially encounter God. If you're in a season where it feels like he's lost your address, you know this now. The Lord of heaven's armies is among you. Trust his love. Cease striving and dare to believe that his plan for you is better than your plan for you. And his will for you, well, that's your best case scenario.
The Unfolding is a Wow God production, a ministry of the University of Northwestern St. Paul. Discover more at wowgod.com.